So about this border crisis and Trump accepting responsibility for what's going on with the GOP not actually working out a deal with the Democrats. This is actually a pretty slick maneuver on Trump and the GOP's part, but you would be pretty surprised to really think about what exactly this maneuver is. So let me explain, if I can, how this is going to work out. So on the screen here, we have a map from Wiki, which is the GOP versus Democrat election map for 2022. So according to Wiki, the red states are the GOP states and the blue states are the Democratic states. Now, I want you to look at something about this map. This is something which has always kind of interested me about the election, the federal election for president, since Carter even. But now it's something you really, really should take a close look at. Okay? Now, I'm going to point out what it is that's important about this map. Okay? You look at which part of the country is red and look at which part of the country is blue. Now, one of the problems we've had with the last Obama, Trump, Biden, this polarization of the nation is that it is dominated in terms of voters by the Democrats, especially when Obama was president 2 terms. But it is dominated in land mass by the GOP. Now, sure, there's this big chunk of blue out here in the border. You know, you've got New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, California, Oregon, and Washington on the left, right? But on the other two, like the East Coast and the Great Lakes, there's much less land that's actually dominated by the Democrats. So yeah, this is a substantial amount of territory on the left, but pretty much on the right, everything is balanced with the left coast. So it's just amazingly surprising that somehow the GOP has ended up with the heartland of the United States, all the way from Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, Illinois, Michigan, I suppose that's what it is up on the right there, all the way out to Idaho, down to Utah, then around Colorado down to Texas, and across the Gulf of Mexico to Florida. Well, you should realize that the border between Texas and New Mexico, all the way out to Florida, and except for Georgia, which is supposedly an anomaly, but certainly all the way up to North Carolina, represents a fairly large amount of the southeastern Gulf states and southern Atlantic states. There's a lot of trade going through that area and a lot of oil in the Gulf of Mexico and off the coast of Florida. That's an important amount of what we would call commerce lanes into and out of the United States. Now you've got the commerce lanes from Idaho all the way over to North Dakota going into Canada. The Great Lakes basically largely managed by, I guess it's the upper side of the peninsula. Is that Wisconsin there, the glove part, or Michigan, one of the two? I guess it's Michigan. I had it wrong. Wisconsin's on the left over there north of Illinois. And then you have, Vermont down to Pennsylvania. But you still also have Illinois, Indiana, Idaho, Kentucky, and these red states out on the left here also. So it's about neutral right there for northern commerce into Canada. The western part, from Washington State down to Arizona, there's a whole section on the west coast that is in the blue states solidly, okay? But they are not connected across the country directly. And this means that the GOP, if they can somehow convince Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida to separate, or at least not cooperate with the federal government, which they already do in lots of ways as it is right now, especially gun rights and so forth. They just basically ignore federal law. They can then shut down interstate commerce from the West Coast over to the East Coast and isolate the West Coast and East Coast and force them to renegotiate their terms of membership in the United States. And this is where things get serious, because ultimately what this means is that the GOP can separate either the blue states from the U.S. or separate the red states from the U.S. They will then have almost a complete domination of either the United States or a new country, an interim country to be formed. They can essentially build off the standing federal model, but change the Constitution, change the legal makeup of that part of the country as they see fit to do so, and then hold that interstate commerce against the blue states in order to force them to agree to terms to rejoin the Union, or for the Union to reform. This is nothing short of a major political masterstroke, requiring only a short, temporary, essentially political disassembly of the United States. They can get it back to where it was on their terms. And the question is, will it happen that way, is the question. If Trump can convince the GOP to essentially do nothing for a year, they can force the blue states to do whatever they want to get federal funding. The Senate can do nothing about it, because it would mean essentially prosecuting the GOP for running the Congress like a true legislative body instead of running it like a national political party. Diametrically 90 degrees opposite. Very much can be done if this is what they decide to do. And I think this is the reason why Trump was so eager to take responsibility for the GOP not cooperating with the Democrats on the border bill, and also having a essentially year hiatus on anything to do it. Just let it go for a year. We'll take care of it in the meantime. So if Texas decides that they're going to take over border duties from the federal government, and we've got this coalition of God-fearing Christians heading down to the border now to provide extra border security, then they won't need the U.S. Army, they won't need Biden. All of that goes away. The federal government's policies go away. Texas can do whatever it wants to do with these migrants. They were sending them to Chicago and New York for the better part of 2 years. Now they can just keep doing that if they want. They want them in the country, in Texas or Oklahoma, whatever, they can let them go there. But Texas controls it, not the federal government. This is the important part, okay? They also no longer have to deal with federal law when it comes to asylum, citizenship, anything. They can take the German model, they can take the Russian model, and have these people come into that part of the country but not get citizenship, not get a work permit, not get a green card, nothing. And they can kick them out whenever they want to, on penalty of never being able to come back in again. Now, of course, there's still the federal government to deal with, and there's still the drug gangs that are trying to get people into the country to deal with. But these are minor problems compared to the problem they have now, which is that the federal government is screwing up the works, and they can fix it if they just get rid of the federal government. And believe me, I think this is a very likely possibility. I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but it's very likely that this could happen. This could turn into some serious shit very soon.